Hey, uh, it's James Tanner here. Um, I'm making a video, which is kind of weird, I know. But I figured this might be a better way to get my thoughts out on a couple of critical issues that a Facebook post or a Medium post wouldn't necessarily reach that many people. I tend to be kind of long-winded, and particularly when I start writing. And if I don't give myself time to edit and look over things, then it can really get kind of hairy. And I don't want to impose that on people. So instead, I'm going to do a little video. The topic, of course, is the coronavirus. And in particular, what it is that we are doing and not doing that I think is bad or good, but mostly bad. So today in Vox.com, there's an article by Matthew Iglesias entitled, let me see here, It's Time for a Massive Wartime Mobilization to Save the Economy. And I saw this article and I lit up because I thought, finally, here's someone that's going to make the argument that I think needs to be made that has a large enough microphone they can reach a lot of people in the public discourse and maybe get the ball rolling. And unfortunately, that's not exactly what the article did. The argument that he makes in a nutshell is that we can't wait for the end of the pandemic to ensure that we don't end up in a depression economically as a result of the pandemic. That we need to use stimulus in particular to encourage people to keep spending money in the limited ways that they can, so that people can be reemployed in other parts of the economy that are suddenly more popular, things like delivery services, grocery stores, etc., so that we don't end up in a full-blown depression. I think that's a perfectly fine argument if we're talking about the period after the first major wave of viral infections. Like right now, we're at the beginning of a wave of massive viral infections. We started off with 1,000 deaths on, let's see, when was it? It was Thursday. And then we hit 2,000 deaths on Sunday morning, 3,000 deaths on Monday evening, and now it is early Tuesday evening and we're at 3,900 deaths. We're at 1,000 a day at this point. And it's only going to get worse because the hospitals in the affected areas are going to start hitting their capacity very soon if they haven't already. And people are going to be dying without treatment. People are going to be sent home with oxygen tanks who need to be put on ventilators. And we're going to see a large spike in deaths from this illness that is going to last for a long time. The projections are this is going to peak out in early to mid-May, depending on what part of the country you're in. And then it's going to take just as long to come down from that peak as it will to go up it. So we may not be to a point where we can resume normality until June, July. And the problem is economic activity is going to be the second biggest driver of infection during that period of time. The number one is going to be family. You know, someone in the family gets it, they're living with other people, they're going to spread it to those other people, right? But the number two vector of infection is going to be the workplace, is going to be people going to work and catching it from their coworkers, catching it from their customers, and passing it on to other people in their workplace. And that's going to be the next biggest mode of infection, especially now that we've gotten rid of the big sporting events and whatnot. So if we could maximally shut down that activity, it would mean hundreds of thousands fewer lives lost. Think about that. Hundreds of thousands of fewer lives lost. All if we can just find a way to limit the spread at work. And the way to do that is not by stimulating the economy so that people go out and spend money, so that people go out to look for work, so that people go out to work new jobs that they didn't have before and are leaving home for all of those things. What we want people to do is stay at home, first and foremost. And what we really need to do is to test people so that we will know if they have the virus, so that they can separate themselves from their family so they don't spread it to them either. But we don't have the tests right now for reasons, right? I'm not going to get into politics on this, but reasons. So what would I do instead of stimulus? I think there are three things that we need to achieve as much as possible over the course of the next 4 months. First, we need to take non-essential workers and make sure they stay at home to the maximum extent possible. First. Second, we need to make testing as universal as possible so that we can identify the people who have the illness and quarantine. And then third, we need to take the people who work in essential businesses and make sure that they're getting hazard pay so that they can, first off, afford the extra complications of having to, having to take precautions to keep themselves safe from the virus, but also because in a lot of these industries, these businesses are open, but they have reduced staff, they have reduced hours. And so, like particularly if you're talking about restaurants, fast food restaurants, sit-down restaurants, a lot of them are still hiring people or still keeping people employed, but they're not giving them the same hours that they used to give them. So what we need to do, those people aren't going to be eligible for the unemployment insurance. And so what we need to do is make sure that they're being paid. And so hazard pay. We could do all of those things effectively by government mandate. It wouldn't be, and what it would amount to is effectively demarketizing our economy for a few months. And I know that people are going to have a very strong resistance to this because this is America. Market economy is, part of the national ideology, basically. But I'm not saying this as a socialist. I'm not saying this as a big Bernie bro or anything, because I'm not. But we are in a unique circumstance where we need to get as much, we need to create outcomes that the market itself will not provide. What we want is well-staffed grocery stores and well-staffed delivery services, well-staffed pharmacies, and no staff at virtually any other business. That's what we want right now. And the market is not going to deliver that. And people voluntarily will not deliver that. We will have to deliver that by government fiat, basically. So here's what I would do. Over the next 4 months, put the economy up on blocks, do it by government fiat, and then once we're past the wave, once we've minimized the death toll from that first massive wave, then there's going to be a period of convalescence. There's going to be a period where the number of new cases is going to shrink to a low enough level that we can start opening the economy back up again. Now, the problem is that a lot of people will not have been exposed to the virus at that point because they've been in hiding this whole time. And so when you open things back up again, some more people are going to get infected, and that's going to grow, and that's going to grow, and it's going to grow up the same exponential scale again, so that in another 3 or 4 months' time, we might need to do another shutdown. And that shutdown might last another few months. And so what we need to be doing is thinking about the long run. How are we going to manage this next year and a half? Because it could be a year and a half until we get a vaccine. And even then, the vaccine may not be all that. You know, flu vaccines are notoriously bad. And there's no guarantee that this coronavirus vaccine that we develop is going to be any better. So we need to remodel parts of our economy. And for this, I would read the Matthew Iglesias article, because I believe that what he outlines there is a great place to start. We basically need to pivot to an economy that is much more durable and much more friendly to taking these sorts of preventative measures against pandemics, because we're going to be dealing with this for quite possibly a long time. But we shouldn't be doing that in the middle of dealing with a viral wave. We shouldn't be doing that at a time when the number one imperative should be saving as many lives as possible. Then once the wave is passed, then you bring in the stimulus. Then you start jobs programs. Then you start pushing people toward more industries of the future, and industries that will be in high demand, and retraining them for those jobs, rather than, you know, the types of jobs that they've been in. That's the only way that I see going forward, that we're not going to have something on the order of multiple hundreds of thousands of deaths and or a depression that rivals the Great Depression. So, on that cheery note, hello. Yeah, I probably won't be doing this regularly. Who knows, I might, but I probably won't. In any case, if I do, I might invest in better equipment. I'm doing this on a MacBook. But yeah, let me know what you think. Hit like, subscribe, share, etc. And let's see if we can get this in the conversation at least, so that, you know, if it's too late for the first wave, maybe it isn't for the second, right? We got to save lives. So, peace. Love you.